But how did you feel like after you turned pro and then did that first pro show? What were your thoughts like in the hotel room or going home and the night after? Because I struggle to switch off, but I feel like if there's any one moment of bliss where I'll be able to actually switch off and just be like it's fucking done, it would be that moment there.
I cried so much, like I'm tearing up now just thinking about it. Like I
Because
remember
I'll cry. I'm fucking. Have no control over my emotions whatsoever. I'll start breaking down and cry.
so the day after winning my pro card, I woke up and I just burst into tears because I was like, that wasn't a dream. Like it actually happened. Like just the most the most ridiculous feeling when you've worked for something for that long.
Mm.
Like, and every time, this is one thing that I'll say to you because I know that like you have huge goals in bodybuilding as well, is like every time it doesn't happen, it just adds another layer to your story and another chapter to your story. And like, I mean, I burst into tears on stage as well. I think the whole crowd just erupted when it happened, and it was just, yeah, like best day of my life. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not exaggerating.
Thank you for tuning in, guys. This podcast is sponsored by Insight Sups. So for all your supplement needs, head to insightsups.com. They have a massive variety of supplements, so many different brands, giving you an insight into some of the best supplements from around the world, not just in the UK. So if we go to categories now, we can look at whey blends. I'm going to take you to one of my favorite whey proteins, which has Perform Whey. There's so many flavors, a few of them out of stock, but always keep your eye open because they will come back in stock. If you follow Insight Subs on Instagram, you'll be able to also keep updated on when the new stocks come in. So all you have to do, give it a quick click, add it to cart, then check out. And what we're going to do is we're going to get a little bit of a discount here real quick by putting in Physique 10. And by doing that, you can get yourself a little bit of a discount. You can sponsor the podcast, sponsor me as an athlete, and I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy the episode. Yo, what's going on, guys? We're back with another Athlete Insight podcast. Today we got Marnie Al-Saraf on, who is one of the UK's newest pros, IFBB Bikini Pro, and she's just going to talk a little bit about being what it's like being a pro, turning pro, and being a female in the bodybuilding industry. Just everything kind of through her life and her career, launching rocket posing as well, and everything that she's done. But anyway, we'll start off with how me and Marnie actually know each other. So Marnie's one of the OGs. We was getting into everything really at the same time, weren't we?
Yeah, do you know what? When you said like how we know each other, I'm just thinking like I've known you for 4 years now, maybe
I
5.
think you
I've
followed
lost.
me on Instagram when I was working in JD Gym. So I would not even
Yeah,
like properly made that step into bodybuilding yet. I think that's when it, and then that's when it just, I think like a month after that is then
yeah,
when I ended up moving down to London.
yeah. And I think as well, like obviously you being based up north as well, and like just trying to connect with other competitors. I mean, obviously I'm way further up north than you are. For those of you that can't tell by my accent, obviously I am from the northeast, so I train out of Ultraflex Gym in Durham. But I think you were training out of like Ultraflex as well, right?
Yeah. The Leeds
Oh,
West one. Yeah.
yeah,
Got
yeah.
the new one. Have you been to the new Leeds one, the Leeds North?
No, not yet.
Yeah, you're
But
gonna smash it
they're
right
opening up so many now because they've also opened up one in Derby, I think. So
here.
feel like I need to branch out
You
and
need to do some gym trips. There's Muscle Bound as well, which I train at. That's like my main home gym, but like there's no girls in there, so I don't know. I don't. You're not the type to be intimidated, are you?
hell no.
Yeah, you'll be all right. It's literally just full of guys, but the kit that they've got in there is crazy.
I
Like
appreciate
it's
good kit.
definitely like one of the best gyms. Like I've
Yeah.
been to. Apart from Banus in Dubai, I'd say that's second place
Right. Okay.
in terms
Interesting.
of equipment.
Yeah.
Um,
I love
so
how we
yeah,
started talking about gym kit already. People probably tell, oh God, like we're gonna just
nerding out on stuff.
talk about literally everything to do with bodybuilding. But yeah, obviously, so just going back to what we said originally, yeah, like I mean, I first started competing in 2015, but that was like way back when. And I think I kind of started following you maybe when I'd kind of switched over to compete. Well, I say switched over to competing with the NPC worldwide, but back when Two Bros, you know, was first
Yeah.
thing in the UK, which I think was 2018. So yeah, like from then onwards, really, that Two Bros, like
Yeah,
Two
it was
Bros had their
2018.
first show, was it 2017, 2018?
2018, I think, because I think that
And then
was
the
my last
NPC,
year
the
doing
NPC
UKBFF.
Worldwide, exactly, because I first started competing with the UKBFF. So yeah, it's mad. Like, I think there's only a handful of us really who are actively competing now, I suppose, that knew of the UKBFF days. I don't know, like there's
Yeah, I always
a lot
reminisce to those days because bodybuilding's changed so much since then. Just
of,
everything around it, the whole industry, like the amount of people competing, what it means to compete, the whole preparation for competing. Because we were speaking to, obviously we've done the podcast with like Sam Astill and like even Isaac and stuff like that, and we're talking about like back then we just used to jump into shows willy-nilly compared to like now, where people
yeah,
take a lot more preparation in posing, people take a lot more preparation in like actually doing like an off season first before they jump into a show. But like back when before, it was just like you just jumped into a show and then that was that. You did how you did, and the coaching thing wasn't as kind of big as well online, was it? That was the
I
first thing that
think
you did. You get onto online coaching? Is that? Oh
I
no,
was
you
gonna
were in uni, weren't
say
you? You were in uni.
I was gonna say, like, on the note of just jumping into shows, I kind of feel like specifically the bikini division just was not what it is now, in that, like, I felt at the time, and I felt like this was almost perpetuated online as well, because there just was nowhere near as much information and resources and media coverage of bikini now than there was back then. And I personally feel like bikini felt like a dieting competition, not bodybuilding. It just was not, like you say, there wasn't really anyone taking massive extended off seasons to purposefully build tissue. Like, it just, maybe in bodybuilding, but like not, I don't know about the bikini division. I think it's evolved so much. But yeah, I think so. To start, yeah, like I was at university. I did shows whilst I was at uni. I don't think I was necessarily highly competitive. Like, I had a few good shows, a few crap shows with UKBFF, but again, I always had that passion there, but it was not structured in the way that I am structured now as an athlete, being like a full-time athlete, and obviously now in the IFBB Pro League as well. But yeah, I competed throughout my time at uni. It was always like in the back of my head that that was where my true passion was. But I studied at Liverpool Uni, did a biomedical science degree. To be honest, I still kind of forget that I did that. It's mad, like when I look back over the last, like I say, 8 years of my competitive stint or whatever, and I did that as well. Probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done. And I dabbled a little bit in online coaching as well when I was at uni, but I don't know, it just never kind of really took off for me. I've always had a passion for helping people. Like, my dream job was to be a doctor, so that was kind of why I went down that route of studying like things related to medicine. My goal was to like get my degree and then apply for postgrad medicine, but I think, well, I graduated during COVID, which is mad. Like,
I
class of
remember
COVID
COVID
in
times.
2020,
I
and I got
remember
sent
COVID
home from
times.
uni, in 2020 when everything shut down. But when I was at uni, I got asked to help people with their posing. It was kind of just, it wasn't something that I took seriously. I think posing now has evolved so much as well, and
Yeah,
like the importance of that. Um, and yeah, like somebody actually just asked me this on a Q&A on Instagram, like, you know, how did I become a posing coach? It wasn't something that one day I woke up and I was like, I'm going to be a posing coach. It kind of was a natural thing that just happened, where people were coming to me for advice. I then started doing it online because of COVID, and then yeah, like then I started doing seminars, and I started trying to do things that I wish I had when I first started out. Like I said just before that, you know,
mm.
when we first started competing back in the day, you didn't have really these big events where you could learn things from people, and I wanted to provide that to the industry and like give back. So yeah.
Yeah, so I still think it's a pretty niche thing though. There's not a lot of people doing it to a high standard. Obviously there's loads of people. There's people that try to do it, but no one doing it to a high standard, and something that you've built. You built like a full brand around it rather than just like a few posing sessions here and there. Because I do posing like here and there, but like
Yeah.
I don't have like a full proper brand. But you've managed to create a full brand and be like, yeah, this is my specialty. This is what I do. I
Yeah.
do posing, and it's taken off for you on it.
Yeah, man, like one of the best things for me about Rocket that I say to a lot of people is like it's the community. And it's not even just me that says that. Like I can tell you now, all the girls on the team, like that some of them have made friends for life. Honestly, like it's insane. You know, we go to shows, watch shows together. We do seminars throughout the year. I like to try and do at least 2 or 3 seminars. Obviously, I just got invited to Gymshark Lifting Club to host a seminar with Ryan Terry. Like, what the actual hell? Gymshark. Can we just
Yeah,
take a moment? Like, that does not happen by chance. That is like, it was a bit of a pinch me moment, to be honest. I was like, I cannot believe that they want me to do this. The turnout was insane as well. So yeah, like when you're getting asked by brands like Gymshark to run these sort of events, I was like, oh God, I must be good then. Like,
yeah, it must be going all right.
So yeah, that was pretty sick. Like, and we've, like I say, I've done a couple of seminars this year as well, and it's honestly just this year has just been. I mean, we're in September now. Like when I look back, I'm like, what the actual hell was this
Yeah,
year?
so many big milestones
Yeah.
hit. So what the biggest one, obviously. Well, no, we need to talk about like your pro prep first. I think we need to start before you were even pro. That last amateur prep, what was
Okay.
that like for you?
So this time last year was when I started my prep for what was the Ben Weeder, which is where I won my pro card in April. Now, if we cast ourselves back to September 2022, I was in such a bad headspace. I cannot even tell you. I spent all of last year hiding away in the shadows. I took a hiatus off Instagram. I didn't post anything for the best part of a year. That was really when I was pouring myself into my posing clients. I was at shows, but I was always there and I was kind of like living through my clients almost. We had 9 girls step on the UK Arnold stage in 2022. And I just threw myself wholeheartedly into that to try and help others. And yeah, I was just miserable. I was still doing the do. I was still training. That was never something that I was going to give up. It was almost like a magnetic pull that like it's all I've ever known is like that is my thing that helps me when I'm in crap times, which I'm sure a lot of the listeners will agree with that as well. Like, you know, the gym never fails you, like when you're going through something. So I lost myself. I really did. There was times where I literally was like, and these words have never left my mouth before since I started competing, that I don't know if I'll ever compete again. It was that bad. I fell out of love with just, I guess, the process. I was very, very uncomfortable with my appearance. Prior to all of this in 2021 was when I won my first ever regional overall. So I feel like I'm kind of going back in time. But again, for anyone that doesn't know my journey, I think it's important to revisit that. So I had that high in 2021 of winning, I think it was like the biggest regional overall, I think, of the year, because it was the regional right before the UK Arnold's.
Yeah.
First ever UK Arnold's that we had. So it was the Graftism Grand Prix, for anyone that can remember that. That show was massive. And I was just shocked when I won that overall, but it was like the highest of highs. And I think I had so much expectation on myself after that, and the pressure of like, the Arnold is yours to win now or yours to lose rather, because, you know, you've just won the overall and now 4 weeks later, you're getting on that stage, you're going to be improved, blah, blah, blah. And I fell flat on my face. I came second. And that honestly was just
It's
really difficult to process. And I was like, I'm not done. I need to go again. And then I was going to compete in Denmark at the Amateur Olympia, and it was a 7-week gap. And that was a long time when obviously you've already done like a 20-week prep. So I ended up pulling the plug on that. And naturally, I felt like a failure.
yeah, I
And
think I remember.
my post show was awful. things just weren't aligning. And yeah, I just found it really, really difficult. And I tried to do like life stuff to try and almost like take my mind off things. Like I went to watch the Arnold in Ohio as a spectator. Like I tried to do other stuff, but honestly, I don't have a lot of life memories from that time because I just hid. Like I literally just hid. And it wasn't like, ooh, like hide away and do a comeback. Like that just was not on my mind at all. Like I genuinely just was unhappy. And yeah, like I felt lost. So from that moment onwards, like I say, I continued going to the gym. I was growing Rocket. I was just helping other people. Like again, for me, it wasn't about, any other like ulterior motives. It genuinely was like, I don't want anyone to feel like I do now. So I want to help as many people as I can. And try and pass on things that I've learned in my own journey as well, which is obviously at this point 7 years worth of competing. And then I went to obviously watch the shows in 2022 when my clients were competing, and I remember there was a moment where I was sat in the crowd and I was watching the British finals, the Two Bros British finals, which I believe was a pro-am because I think it was the One Bro Pro show as well on the same day. And I remember going to watch that, and I thought to myself, like, there's no way that like I am going to continue this off season with how I feel. Like I just was mentally burnt out of feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And I felt like I've always been a believer in that, like prep shouldn't be something that solves your life problems. But in this instance, I needed that fire and spark back. Like I really, really did. And I was sat there and I thought, I want to compete at the start of next year. Like, if this is ever going to happen again, I need to take action now. Like, I cannot wait any longer because this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. And like I say, I might never compete again. So I proposed to my coach at the time, like, what do you think about me competing at the start of next year? And to this day, like, I was told if you compete at the start of next year, you won't win. And I was like, okay. So at that point, that was when Jake, who is now my coach, still Jake Watts from Amplified Nutrition, I had a really, really good friendship with Jake going on sort of in the background. I've known of Jake for a long time. He's always kind of taken a brief interest in my journey, but at the time he was sending a lot of his bikini girls to me for posing throughout 2022. So we had a good relationship there and communication where I was getting his girls in. We were winning overalls together because obviously he was doing the physique side, I'm doing the posing side. And I'm like, wow, his girls are always in great shape. Like, he knows what he's doing with bikini. And I think bikini is such a fine art. Like, there's coaches out there that they either know bikini or they don't. And you can see it from a mile off. Probably the same for you watching, your division as well. Like, when you take such an interest in that class specifically, you start to identify who's really, really good at that class specifically. It's like there's other coaches out there that are very, very good at open men's bodybuilding. Do you know what I mean? It's just different. Someone
It's totally like so many different little manipulations here
nuances.
and
there. Yeah, 100%.
Things so much.
So basically, Jake and I had a conversation, and I just messaged him one day, and I was like, I would love your opinion on something, like, honest opinion as a friend, but someone that I trust in the industry. What do you think that I would be good enough to compete at the start of next year? So the start of next year being the start of 2023, so this year. And he was like, what are you talking about? He was like, you won the biggest regional overall in 2021. Like, what do you mean, are you in the mix? He's like, your confidence is in the floor. Like, the fact that you're even asking me this question, he's like, this is not the Marnie that I have known. Like, and at that point I was like, will you take over? Like, I think you would be great for me with this. So for me, it's like, I know how to train, I know how to diet, like, and I know how to pose. And I think Jake really, really helped to unlock that next level of confidence in me. And he absolutely poured 110,000% into me, into taking me on as one of his athletes. So basically, we started working together in August of last year. This was right around the time of the British finals. Like I say, when I was sat in the crowd thinking, I need to compete. We started the prep the following month in September. So we had a month to kind of like get everything consistent. Like, I mean, I was already being consistent, but we set our own, right, this is the step count, this is the food intake, this is the sleep, this is the off-plan meals, blah, 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 so that we were then ready to, like, we set off that runway to then start the deficit in September. And I actually said to Jake, like, I'd love to do the Arnold, Ohio amateur show. We went out there and I just thought, wow, it would be amazing to compete here. And with that being like before the first UK regional of the year, there wasn't like a regional qualification needed. That was the exception to the rule at the time. I don't know if it's still the same now. So you didn't have to do a regional beforehand because there wasn't one in the UK. You kind of just go and do it straight off the bat. Funnily enough, as the ball was rolling in that prep, we got to December, I think, and the amateur Arnold, Ohio got cancelled out of nowhere. I don't know if you remember seeing that. It was kind of like, I think Nick Trigilli had shared it on his reel.
Yeah, I was seeing it.
And I was like, this is a sign from the universe not to do the show. It got cancelled and then put back on in the space of 2 weeks. It was really weird. And I was like, the universe is doing something, like, let's reformulate a game plan. And Jake was like, right, well, let's do the Ben Weider. We've got extra time in the prep. We'd already allowed for a 24-week prep into the Arnold. So now I had an extra few weeks. So it just meant that we had more refeeds. We weren't chasing our tail. Like, yeah, so it extended my prep, but there was a positive side to that, I suppose. And obviously I then wrapped my head around the fact that I was now going to be competing on home soil, doing the Kingdom Classic. And I was like, as annoying as it is having to do a regional, like, I'm really, really glad that we had that, because I made so many mistakes in that show that I was then able to rectify to come in and like win the Ben Weider. So the universe does stuff for us, I swear to God, it really does.
I feel like there was so much steps in that story there, like from the
sorry,
some people I'd say, like, I'd be like, yeah, well, what was your prep for your show like? They'd just be like, yeah, it was all right, man. It was tough, it was hard, man. It was like, right, let's break this down. Yeah, this happened. But now you almost broke out crying, to be fair, listening to that, like, because obviously I got so much love for you just because of how long I've known you and I know the person that you are. And I went through some similar shit. If I didn't have Hader, I don't know where the fuck I would be right now. Like, I was.
He does such a good egg,
like,
and
I was in the pits. When I say I was in the pits, and exactly how you said what you said, I had to do a prep to get back on track, to get back to my 100%. And Hader was just like, you're not the same Dudley that I know, like, just like exactly what you said. So we were just like, we'll do a show in 9 weeks. So I just jumped into that, and then off the rebound of that, then now I'm good again. But it's we all go through this stuff, man. It's tough. It's bodybuilding is a really tough mental game. I'm the type of person, I overthink a lot of shit, have a lot of anxiety all the time. And I'm just like, am I good enough? Like, and it's just so much doubt in it.
I think one of the biggest things for me, I've always said this, I'm like, and I believe the same for you as well, Dudley, like, your time will come when everything is in alignment. If there's something that's not in alignment, it ain't gonna happen. And I fully was able to appreciate that the day that I turned pro, honestly, because I was like, I now see why all these other things went wrong, because it just wasn't my time yet. I didn't have the right people in my corner. Like, honestly, having Jake there, like, he burst out into tears the day that I turned pro. It was like, we fucking did it. And like, to think back, like I say, to not even 6 months prior to that, the headspace that I was in of like, I may never compete again. I am not like, I didn't think that I was very religious, but like I honestly do believe in God now, because I'm like, that was God's plan. Like that was like it. Yeah, I don't know how to like articulate myself, but I just think someone was watching over me. Honestly, it was almost like, no, you are good enough, and I was just scooped up and like put to where I needed to be
Yeah.
after all those years of like trying, not being good enough, people having opinions, people not believing in you, being around the wrong circle. Like, just, you're gonna have that throughout your journey. That's the thing though. Like, it's very, very, very rarely is it ever plain sailing.
Yeah, I mean, we wish it was. I wish it was easy. I feel like it was in the early days, but when you start thinking of it so seriously because you want the goal so bad, that's when these bumps and stuff come in, because you don't see the hurdles as much when you're just cruising through it and you're doing it for a bit of a hobby and a laugh. But when you're like, yo, like this is actually my life now, and I really want and really need to achieve this, or I'm fucking failure in life, then like these little things can just hit you from left, right, and center and take you from 1 minute being top of the world to next minute just at ground zero again. So how have you dealt with coming off the back of, well, no, you went into prep. Well, coming off the back of that turning pro.
Ben Reader, yeah.
Yeah. Where did you go from that? What was your first pro show?
Well, my first pro show was like 10 minutes after the Ben Reader, because it was the One Bro Pro show.
How did you do that?
Yeah, so like, you know, Billy, the MC, Billy
Yeah.
Garner, I think his name is. He was like, we have an Olympia qualifier on this stage. Will you do it? And I was a bit like, yeah.
Might as well if you're there.
Well, the thing is like, that is also like a once in a lifetime opportunity, because he bigged me up when I walked out onto that stage. And I'm like, you won't get that if you go rock up to a pro show. They're not going to be like, and making her pro debut. I was honestly, it was so sick. And I think as well, having so many of my clients, friends, other coaches who've watched the whole journey, like Ian from Two Bros, like I've grown up in this sport. So to have everybody there watching it and supporting in the crowd, I was like, I ain't going to get this moment again. So yeah. I came fourth out of 10 bikini pros. So I was in the first call out. Yeah.
Good debut. And then was it New York Pro after that?
So I got feedback from Maz pretty much straight away. So he was the head judge at that show. And he was like, honestly, I was contemplating giving you third place. So I just missed out on a check, which is just mental. Yeah. He was like, you know, your posing is fantastic. You hang with the pros in terms of muscularity. He was like, you'll see from the photos. Actually, shameless plug, but if you go watch my Ben Weeder Pro Card YouTube video, you'll see me talking to Maz at the end of the video. Like, you'll hear some of the things that he says. And I said to him, like, do you think I should do more pro shows? And he was like, if you feel good, then just go for it. And it's so funny because, like, I really did manifest being able to do New York and Pittsburgh Pro. Like, when I was in prep for the Ben Weeder and as I was getting closer and closer to the show, I knew that, like, for me, that show was either you're making a pro debut or you ain't winning a pro card at all. Because I knew that there was a One Bro Pro show. I was like, of course I'm going to do it if I win my pro card. So I was like, this isn't just prepping to win a pro card. This is prepping for a pro debut. That's what my headspace was like going into that show. And I didn't know if it was going to happen, because I know a lot of people, like, they'll ask like new pros, like, oh, did you know you were going to win the day that you won? And I didn't know what was going to happen. But one thing I will say is that is the calmest I have ever been on a show day. So I did that. I did the One Bro Pro, which was an amazing experience. And 4 weeks later, I did the Pittsburgh Pro as my official pro debut, if you want to call it that. Pittsburgh was just before New York. They were a week apart. So I flew out to Pittsburgh on my own. And again, I don't know if like the listeners will be kind of aware of like the prestige of some of the pro shows in the IFBB, but outside of the Arnold Classic and the Olympia, I would say Pittsburgh and New York are right underneath that in terms of the caliber of athletes that show up, the judging panel, just the overall prestige of the show. So like the Pittsburgh Pro is Jim Mannion's show. He is the promoter of that. So like anyone who is someone was there. Like it was just, honestly, I was like shocked to be there. I was just like, what? Who am I in this sport? I'm absolutely nobody.
So
But I
what
did
girl from
class.
Newcastle, from England, like in like all these Americans, like because we watch all these people on YouTube every single day, and we feel a little bit disconnected because we're from England. But to be able to go over there and like step on a stage in America is just crazy.
Yeah, honestly, it was the media coverage, like people sat in the audience. They obviously had all the guest posers, like because there's no open bodybuilding at Pittsburgh. It's like they do, you know, like guest posing instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, both shows were just, I've said this before, I felt like a first timer all over again.
You will do. But how did you feel like after you turned pro and then did that first pro show? What were your thoughts like in the hotel room or going home and the night after? Because I struggle to switch off, but I feel like if there's any one moment of bliss where I'll be able to actually switch off and just be like it's fucking done, it would be that moment there.
I cried so much, like I'm tearing up now just thinking about it. Like I remember
I'll cry. I'm fucking. I have no control over my emotions whatsoever. I'll start breaking down and cry.
So the day after winning my pro card, I woke up and I just burst into tears because I was like, that wasn't a dream. Like it actually happened. Like just the most ridiculous feeling when you've worked for something for that long. Like, and every time, this is one thing that I'll say to you, because I know that like you have huge goals in bodybuilding as well, is like every time it doesn't happen, it just adds another layer to your story and another chapter to your story. And like, I mean, I burst into tears on stage as well. I think the whole crowd just erupted when it happened, and it was just, yeah, like best day of my life. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm not exaggerating. I think you hear a lot of like mixed feelings, mixed emotions from people when they get asked like, oh, how was it to win your pro card? Some people are like, oh, I felt no emotion. I was the complete opposite of that. Like it was almost that confirmation of like, you are good enough. And I know that sounds weird because it's like I felt like I was good enough going into the show after feeling not so good enough for the whole year prior, but it was almost like the universe like just patting me on the back, being like,
Yeah.
you're right where you need to be. But yeah, like it honestly, because of my personality, I think long term. I know a lot of people will be the opposite. I think in bodybuilding, because it's like arguably a monotonous sport where it's like, you know, tick your boxes every day, like hour by hour, meal by meal, rep by rep, like you're kind of very grounded in the here and now. But for me, I think long term. I truly believe that I manifested being able to do the New York and Pittsburgh Pro this year. I thought about it so hard in my head, and I could see it so much in my head that it happened. And I think like just that week post show from winning my pro card, it's so hard to articulate. Like I think I wasn't able to appreciate what had just happened because I was thinking about the next thing already. I was like, right, what's next? You're in the pro league now. Off you go. Like this is
Back to
it.
square one, innit? It's back to square one. You got to start building again, reevaluating things. Did you
I'm so glad.
implement any new training or anything like that?
No, nothing.
You just kept everything the same.
For me, it was like, okay, I think it was amazing to obviously, like I always said, when I turn pro, I want to be ready to actually do well in a pro show straight off the bat. I don't want to turn pro and then not look like I belong on a pro stage. Like for me, like a lot of people are like, oh, pro card, pro card, pro card. But I'm like, yeah, but what about after that? Because then you're against the pros, then you're against the big girls, the big boys, whatever. So for me, like, again, to come forth in a pro show straight away, I was like, wow. Like, that was actually, like, turning pro, massive achievement. But that same day, I was like, holy shit. Like, that's good going. So I think, like, for me, it was more like, right, jump in at the deep end. Go and do the biggest shows that you possibly can. Humble yourself. get the feedback from the big judges, from the Olympia judges, and then you've got clear direction for this next off season, which is exactly what I did.
100%. So over this, how long has it been since you've been in this off season now? Then did the rebound go perfect or like 80%, 70%?
So because obviously, like going back to the start of the story, because I started my prep in September, October, November, December, January, February, March was the regional, April was the pro card, May was Pittsburgh and New York. That's 9 months of prep. So that extension, because obviously I changed my course of what show I was going to do, was great at the time, but I then extended my season even more at the end. So I think because of the length of the prep, I actually spoke about this on Instagram just before. Jake is very big on reverse dieting, and we did try that. Like we did, like, I go into my shows eating next to no food. I didn't reverse diet into them. I'm one of those people that, like, I am depleted as hell on stage. I don't really get a lot of food, and I think a lot of that is genetic, to be honest. I just have a bubblier, thicker look to my physique, and again, being only 5 foot tall, I think that also plays a role. So naturally, coming out of those shows and being on like less than 1,000 calories, that makes you reverse almost more difficult, because if you slowly then reverse up from there, I'm still only eating like just over 1,000, or which isn't a lot of food when you've been dieting for 9 months. It's not easy. So we did try and like drip feed, but I was like, Jake, I need a bigger bump. Like, and to be honest, I'm glad I did that. My food is nice and high now, but it went up very, very slowly. Like we didn't aggressively bump up where my weight spiked and, you know, it was uncomfortable, it was uncontrollable. It was very, very controlled and very, very slow. Like we did slowly titrate up. But the initial bump out of the gate was probably quite big. And then I needed that. I did, because I was like, I need to grow, because I'm like this on the pro stage now.
Yeah.
So now, obviously, like being 18 weeks down the line post show, I'm really glad we did that, because I see that I've made progress already. I've grown some tissue. So
when are you looking to start prep again? Is it going to be soon or?
So for me, in my head, I probably will not compete till 2025, but it's one of those where, like, you just don't know. This is my first growing phase with Jake, you know, kind of overseeing things. Obviously, it was my first prep with Jake as well. So, like, we're still learning, like, the actual, like, technical side of things with each other, I guess.
Yeah.
Our communication and dynamic is so good. Like, honestly, we back and forth all the time. We've already backed and forthed about like when we'll next compete as well. The great thing about competing in the pro league is obviously that, like, there is literally a show every single weekend. I know obviously we have that with like NPC worldwide with the pro qualifiers, but I do think that you need a little bit of a different strategy when it comes to competing in pro qualifiers, obviously based on when the regionals are and things like that. And I think when you're competing as a pro, like, I will have a strategy when I pick my shows as well. I think that's really important, regardless of what level you're competing at. You need a strategy. But I also know where I would like to and wouldn't be so keen on competing as a pro as well. So for me, like, I'd love to compete in the UK on home soil again. But also for me, I will compete primarily in the US, just because I think that sort of look is more suited to my physique as well. Whereas I think sometimes the European shows, it might not be where I best fit. So obviously all those things taken into consideration will determine what shows I pick and when I compete, essentially. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important. People don't think about that. They look for different things in different countries. So like you can be really good in England, but say it from obviously what I've seen is, well, in the guys divisions anyway, well, I'm trying to still kind of figure it out in classic, but what it was in men's physique is in Europe they liked more condition.
Okay, yeah.
And then in the UK it was a little bit of a mix of both. And then America, the team tend to go for a little bit more bigger guys. And then you've got Asia, which is pretty big guys there as well.
Yeah.
What's it like in bikini? What do they look for in Europe compared to England?
So this is the thing. I think it's a really hot topic at the moment, to be honest. There's a lot of videos kind of being posted about like the differences between like judging panels and stuff like that. And is it the judges getting it wrong, or, you know, this is the criteria, blah, blah, blah. But I actually think that it's more about what pool of athletes show up. So they've got to pick a winner, like out of who shows up, right? So even if none of those girls fit the criteria of an hourglass shape and, you know, no etched in glutes, no full separation, striation, blah blah blah. Imagine if all, say if there was 5 pro athletes show up at that specific pro show. If that's the criteria, but there's 5 athletes on stage and they all have those things, they've still got to pick a winner. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's where I think, like, I do think that we are a little bit behind in Europe still in terms of, you know, like the pool of athletes that are showing up ultimately. I think that because obviously the IFBB and the Olympia is like in the US, the athletes over there are used to getting in front of those judges. And so that's why the look that they bring to the stage is in line with what those judges are asking for and what they're rewarding as well.
I think there's a lot more quality pros coming out of Europe though, just because if you talk about volume, because in America you can get fucking top 3 and get a pro card in some of the shows. And like some of the guys that I've seen that turn pro in America, I'm like, if you tried in Europe, you would have a hard time.
Yeah, I think that's true. But then also from the standpoint of bikini, it's very, very common for European pros to win a pro show and then come 16th at the Olympia. So like obviously again for anyone that doesn't know, like it's called like the Sea of 16. So if you place 16th or below in a lineup, you're automatically all 16th place. So you won't actually know where you've placed because you've technically all placed dead last.
Do you think it's just a little bit harsh on us though? Because a lot of it might just be like they've seen these girls at this show and this show and this show, and you automatically, your eyes automatically go to someone that you've seen before. And maybe sometimes a lot of European athletes get overlooked unless there may be someone out there in the social media like fucking Samson Dowder, who's automatically gets an eye because even though he's from England, he's out there and he's made that jump on the social media that everyone's looking at him now. But when you don't go in with a big social presence, you're just like another pro and they've never seen you before, you can get overlooked very, very easy.
This is something that you know, Angelica Teixeira, Miss Bikini Olympia. So I spoke to Angelica about this and she actually said to me, like, you know, I think what you did going to Pittsburgh and New York was really, really good. But she was like, you need to remember that, like, in the same way that I won my pro card, the judges want to get to know you. Like they do. They need to see that progression in someone. And I believe that's why I won my pro card. Because I think they saw, like, I'd never been judged by Maz before, but they've seen my journey as an athlete as well. The other judges on the panel, they've judged me before. And I think it's the same in the pro league in that sense, but also when you compare like bikini to other categories like men's bodybuilding or classic or whatever, in bikini there's a lot of additional parts of the package that will be getting judged as well. And I think the styling differences between the US girls and the European girls is still very different. In Europe you might see girls have very, very different posing styles. They're very flamboyant with their arms and they do all this crazy stuff, and I think a lot of that has come from the IFBB elite actually. So some of these athletes that you see in the pro league now were actually with the IFBB elite before that. So their posing style is still kind of like evolving to fit the pro league criteria. But even things like bikinis, like you'll see a lot of European girls wearing like ombre suits and stuff like that, and when you do that on a US stage, it isn't typically rewarded. Like I've seen it happen a couple of times, but again I think it's like you need to look at the top 5 at the O. That's your standard. It doesn't mean replicate that look, but it just means, like, you know, that's kind of what they are rewarding. And I think that's, like I say, where the biggest differences are. And obviously you don't have that element when it comes to bodybuilding and stuff. Like, yes, posing, but like overall styling, that's obviously suited to bikini really, rather than that.
Yeah. So what do you want to make it? Well, oh, this is a stupid question. I was gonna say, do you want to make it to the Olympics? That's a fucking stupid question. Of course you do. So are you looking this next pro show that you're going to do? Is that you want to go and get a pro win and just get that ticket to the
So this is why I'm taking my time, because so when I did Pittsburgh and New York, a lot of people might think, who do you think you are doing the big pro shows? Like, you're nobody, like that's a prestigious stage, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I wanted to stand next to the best girls to see where my gaps are. And I managed to do that. So like I've obviously stood next to like Amy Delgado as an example, who actually won the Pittsburgh and New York Pro. We actually came out in the same group of girls at the beginning because it's all alphabetical order. So like I've seen myself stand next to someone like that, and I know exactly what I need to work on and like where the gaps are. So for me, like I say, I'm not rushing the process. I might get to like the middle of 2024 next year and think I've made a decent amount of progress where it would be enough to get into a first call out. But again, like that's my goal. So I was in the third call out, obviously, of course I was in the third call out at like the two biggest pro shows, but I didn't go there to win. I went there to get my feedback and to stand next to those people. Like there was a reason behind it. So yeah, for me, like I'm going to be making sure that I'm getting back on stage with the density that I need to hang with the pros, but also having all of that experience of the travel and my styling choices. Like I changed my look like 3 or 4 times this year because again, every pro kind of has their signature look with hair, makeup, bikini color and stuff like that. And you only really know what works when you get up there and you try different things out. Obviously it's one of those where like you kind of don't want to experiment too much on a pro stage because there's more at stake.
Yeah.
So any amateurs that are listening, whether it's bikini or whatever, like, you know, even if you're a male competitor, as an amateur, that is your chance to experiment with posing, with, you know, suit color or, you know, whatever. Like learn those things now so that when you compete as a pro, you've already got all of that data. So you know what works and what doesn't. And then from the travel side of things, you know, when I next compete, like, yes, I'd love to, of course, I'd love to win a pro show, but for me, it's my goal is first call out in a US pro show, which would be a massive achievement.
Yeah. First call, that's a big thing. So for talking to the amateurs and stuff now, the female amateurs, how, because obviously you said you have to diet super, super low. How should you actually be feeling? Because there might be some girls watching this now and they're complaining about the diets. Are you just maybe just want to tell them to shut the fuck up and get on with it? Or like, how should you actually be feeling?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I have a very strong opinion on this, and I've said this to a lot of my posing clients before. Embrace the things that are getting you closer to your goal. It could not just diet related, cardio, training, sleep, anything. Embrace it. Because if you don't embrace it, someone else is. And I think you're leaving food on the table for someone else to take.
Yeah.
Obviously, within the sport, this is another thing that I've come to appreciate as I've matured as a competitor as well. What's seen as optimal or preached as optimal on paper might not be what's optimal for you because we're all so different. Like, don't get married to certain approaches. I think be willing to learn, be open to things. Like for me, when I talk about going into these shows, like this year, obviously my peak week strategy was like, just wake up like it's just another day. We didn't manipulate food. We didn't manipulate water. We literally just, because I looked great in the run up to the show. So it's like, why change anything? It eliminates that like unpredictability or stress. But that doesn't mean that next time I prep, I'm married to that and that things might not change. Do you know what I mean? Like things are supposed to change in bodybuilding, I think, as you progress. That could be with your posing as well, because, you know, your physique changes. So I think if things stay the same, that to me potentially means that you aren't progressing. Unless, of course, like you're a top pro and you're at you're at where you're at and that's it, and you're kind of at your ceiling. I think for the amateurs that are listening, like, there's a reason why you're still an amateur, so there's still ground there to be made up potentially. But yeah, like, just embrace things. And I think as well, like, if you're the type of person that like complains when your coach takes food away, like, that's something actually quite funny. Like, Jake would message me throughout the prep and be like, you're gonna hate me, but I'm pulling this and this away. And I'm like, I don't hate you, do it.
I hate it. Well, I don't say, to be fair, I don't say it to him, but I'll stand in my kitchen and I'll go, you fucking knobhead. But
Do you
then I
feel
get over
triggered
it. But then
do
I
you
just
feel
get over
triggered
it.
now that I've said that?
No. I have a little like moan to myself. I'll stand in my kitchen. I'll go, "You are a dickhead." But then that's it. I get on with it from there.
But that's the thing. Like, I think it's because I'm a bit sadistic like that, because I know that when he makes a change, we're gonna see some changes in my physique visually. And I also think, like, when with cardio and stuff like that, I'm like, every step that you take as you're like chipping away, carving out your physique. Like, I have to think of things. I'm quite a visual person. Like,
One of my main things is like whenever I'm on the Stairmaster or whatever, I'm always thinking there's probably someone who's doing the exact same show as me right now on the Stairmaster. I don't know, a fucking different pure gym somewhere random in, I don't know, Birmingham or something, but they might be stepping on stage next to me and they're doing it at exact the same time as I'm doing it. So I imagine that there's just a row of people next to me who are actually going to be stepping on stage. So it's like I can't slow down because them motherfuckers aren't slowing down. And like, if I do, I'm only cheating myself. Like, so you just got to keep pushing through the pain and like try and enjoy it as much as you can.
Totally. Visualization is everything. Don't get me wrong, things get fucking tough. Am I allowed to swear?
I've sworn 50 million fucking times.
You get tough. I
Is that
remember
the first swear word in an hour? I can't last that long.
There was one moment in my prep. I remember this day like it was yesterday. Like when you're doing cardio and you start to go hypo. I remember there was one day when I was like in the run up to turning pro. And obviously I didn't know at the time I was going to win my pro card. I was like, it's just another day on prep. And I remember like I went hypo, and Jake's very relaxed with my cardio and stuff like that. He lets me like split it in half if I need to. Like, I don't have to do it all in one stint. I don't have to do it fasted. He's just so blasé like that. He's like, you want to turn pro? Like, you know what you need to do. But I went hypo, and anyway, I cut my cardio in half, and I went home and I thought, right, go have a bath, eat your next meal, and you can go back and do the other half later. And I remember I was still hypo in the bath, and I messaged Jake and I was like, I don't think I can do this second half of cardio. And I remember he was like, you are doing it.
Yeah.
And that's like, you are not skipping this second session. He's like, I need you to do it. He was like, you can do this, but have tomorrow's a rest day. Like, I'll pull your cardio out tomorrow. But he was like, today you are doing it. He's like, no ifs, no buts, you're doing it. And I don't know how I managed to do it, but I remember that conversation, and like, it's those moments that allowed me to turn pro, because he pushed me in those moments. If he hadn't pushed me, I might not have improved from the regional to the Ben Weeder, and I don't think I would have won my pro card.
Do you need ever pulling back at some point, though? Because I remember like I was having a point where my body weren't really responding too much, and we were putting in 800 grams of carbs every single day, and like what took away like all the cardio, I was still dropping weight. 800 grams of carbs every single day and still dropping weight. The body was just rejecting anything. And at that point, Hader was like, right, I don't want you to do no like cardio or anything. And I was like, I'll just do my base steps 10,000 a day. I've got to do that. Like, I can't just sit around and do no. So I did that. And then obviously the next day I dropped weight again. He's like, well, what did you do yesterday? I was like, oh, I just did a few steps, this and that. It's like, I told you to do fucking nothing. I was like, well, 10,000 is nothing. I get 10,000 in my sleep. Like, it was like, no, I mean, literally nothing. I was like, so all you want me to do is to just fucking sit down all day? Like, he was like, yeah. So I was just sat in the dark and just did a Harry Potter marathon all day. But it was just like that was harder than actually working hard, if that makes sense. So do you ever like need to be pulled back because you feel like you need to be working hard?
Yeah, that's a good question. Jake utilized refeeds a few times during the prep, actually. Between shows, I didn't really get much of a feed. And it's funny again because I know that Jake, if he's watching this, he would agree that he learned a lot this year as well in our prep. When I did a rocket seminar in January, Jake was a guest speaker and he was actually talking about reverse dieting we had like 30 girls turn up. So it was kind of like an educational seminar talk. And I remember hearing him say to everyone, like, I'm a big believer in that when cardio is out, it's out. And I was like, that's interesting. And after the Kingdom Classic, we pulled out cardio going into the Kingdom Classic, and he was like, once cardio's out, it won't go back in. It went back in before the Ben Weeder. He pushed me. And then same thing again from the Ben Weeder into New York and Pittsburgh. Cardio went back in again, both times. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like a stress thing. For me, I have to be doing more. I feel like if I don't, maybe it plays on my mind, I'll retain more water, my cortisol goes up because I'm not actively doing something. Do you know what I mean? That's something that I'm still working on as well. I think it's that inner athlete within us always wants to do more, do more, do more. One thing that I will say is though as well is we never touched my step count during prep. That stayed at 12,000 from start to finish, which was actually really, really nice because I've done preps in the past where like I've worn a weighted vest, I've done 17K steps. You just feel like you are constantly on your feet and there's just no rest. But with the cardio thing, again, this is where my relationship with Jake is really good. I got really bad, what do you call it when you get sore feet? Plantar fasciitis. Have you ever had that?
Is it like in the middle of your foot and you just can't you just
Oh
can't.
my God. Yeah. It's from like the repetitive on the stairs.
I got it from Smith machine squats.
Oh my God. Yeah. I think it's called like maybe runner's foot. I think people get it when they run. But I think
Over stressed,
it's that impact as well. And so that actually happened halfway through my prep, and I was just very honest with Jake. Like, I knew that if I overstepped that mark, I wouldn't be able to pose because obviously you have to wear heels on stage. So there's that where Jake's like, I can't have you not posing on stage correctly, like pull the cardio. So it wasn't necessarily from like your body's not my body responded very, very well during the prep, to be honest. I think because my stress levels were so low, and Jake allowed me, he led the prep and had the final say on a lot of things, but he allowed me to like come into my own and use my knowledge of what works for me. And it just worked perfectly. Like, I don't know what your stance is on things like fasted cardio, but I know there's some coaches that are like, fasted cardio, blah, blah, blah. This is what we're doing, 2K steps after every meal. But for me, I just don't like fasted cardio.
No. I feel
Like,
like I burn more with fasted cardio. That's why I like it.
I do mine post-workout.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have time for that. Get me my food straight away. Get me my food.
You say that right, but like for me, it worked really, really well for my schedule. So like as a posing coach, I have to be available at the crack of dawn for my clients who are in prep and need their posing sessions on a morning, who obviously work 9 to 5. And then I also have to make myself available in the evenings for them as well, like for those that want to pose later in the day. So for me, the middle of my day when I'm at the gym, that is my time where like I switch off from everything else. So I found it really, really good where I could get up, I'm productive, I'm giving my clients my 100%. I then get ready for training. I train, do my cardio, come home, hot bath, relax, second block of work, bed. That's it. So it just worked really nicely that I was like, again, sometimes I'd have to split my cardio up in the depths of prep into 2 sessions. But for the majority, I was able to like bundle my training and cardio into like one thing where I'd go do it and that was it for the day. So it's just one of those, like I say, for anyone that's listening that's an amateur and like that feels like they're married to a certain way or whatever, like there's just so many ways to do this.
So many ways. Yeah. Yeah. What you just gotta do stuff, and then this is what I say about the whole of bodybuilding though. It's like just try something out, yeah. If you get a good fucking response from it, just keep doing it.
Totally
Keep
agree.
doing it. And don't care I don't care what the science says or what this person says or what is. if you're doing something and it's working for you and like you feel good and you're getting closer to that goal that you've got, just keep doing that until you get to a point where it just seems like it might not be working, and then you see if you can manipulate a few things and then figure it out. But yeah, you just gotta try something, and then just if it works, doesn't it? And it's got to fit in with your lifestyle as well.
I think the small details really, really matter when you're in a prep, because the best way to prep is to keep your stress levels as low as humanly possible. So if there's something in your protocol that stresses you out, don't do it. Do something else. So like, again, for me, water manipulation going into a show is a massive stress, because I'm like, right, 500 mils with this meal, and then how much sodium am I having, and like, like I need to drink more water, or I need to drink less water, and I'm just it's like, right, don't water load, drink your normal water, and then on show day you're going to look like you did all the other days before when you were with your check-in. And I think when it's an off season, again, I'll use like what I'm doing right now as an example. For me, I've realized that I tick when I'm in prep and I flick that switch on. When I'm in off season, don't get me wrong, I'm full send in the gym, but I'm not on a meal plan right now, because I think there's a time and a place for that, where I need to be on the money every single day, like to the gram,
So do you do macros in off season or anything? Because I do macros.
Yeah, so like, don't get me wrong, I do follow like a rough structure throughout the day. Like, I'm a
Not
creature
like
of
if it
habit.
fits your macros and like,
Yeah,
I
like
do.
I'm
I have
still
the structure, but like sometimes I might change a potato for rice or whatever, and
100%
like
the same.
the meals stay basically exactly the same. The 6 meals stay, yeah, they do 99% of the time, but just such small little things might change. Granola or something like that might come in, or
I have like things that like go through phases in off season. So like I might spend 6 weeks obsessed with sweet potato, and then I'm like, bored of that now. Okay, now I'm obsessed with jasmine rice. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're still creature of habit. I still have the same breakfast every day. Like, I'm having
breakfast don't change.
but like, I don't know, it's funny, like I've already gone through like these multiple obsessions throughout the last 18 weeks, where like each month I've had like a different obsession, and then it kind of rotates. But yeah, like Jake again he's like, as long as you're eating enough food and you're training full send and you're sleeping, you're going to be making progress, like, and your stress is low. So happy days.
As well, that's the main thing. I think Nick Walker was talking about that. I was listening to something he was saying, and he was like, he's made a lot of progress just from removing stressful things, and like it's such a big part in terms of how your body responds to stuff. Like just getting rid of stress, you'll allow your body to take itself to another level. But there's so much going on, it just can't deal with it, and then it shuts down, and there's no response. And so it was, like I said, that was exactly what was happening when I was in prep. Though, like 800 grams of carbs a day, body not responding. We even had to pull drugs out because every time I was pinning, I was getting inflammation everywhere. So like my body just was pushing everything out, food, drugs, whatever that I was trying to put in, and that was literally just because of stress.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, stress is important. Right, let me see what time it is.
Oh my God, sorry.
It's been a long time. I think this is
How
going to
long?
be the longest one. I think it's been an hour and a half almost. I don't know. We did talk for a while before we even started it. So let's just kind of wrap up on, we spoke about before kind of femininity and bodybuilding. I think that'd be a really good little bit to finish on. Talk a little bit kind of what you were saying about that, like the femininity and masculinity, and like trying to balance it within life and being a female bodybuilder.
Yeah, I think so. Basically, I just think that I think it is a challenge as a woman in the sport, where it is a very, very male dominated sport. And it's something that like has actually come up with my posing clients. So as much as like I do emphasize on posing and stuff like that, like Team Rocket is about so much more than just that. We deep dive into like so many different elements of what it means to be confident and what it means to be successful in the sport. And I think everything ties together. If you're unsure of yourself, you're unsure of your identity and like where you fit, then you can't perform your best on stage and you can't fulfill your potential. That's what I think anyway. And we were just obviously talking off camera before just about how I do think that femininity really is like a performance and an expression. And you can really tap into that energy through your posing, how you express yourself, and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know if you've got any specific questions or
It's just more about like in general, do you think like every girl, every woman that gets into bodybuilding has that a different kind of level that they think is acceptable?
potentially, yeah. I think what you've got to remember as well is like femininity, I think, is subjective as well. Because I know there's a lot of people that would look at what we do. Like,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
there's some normal people look at you and be like, "Oh, you're a fucking." It's like, what?
I was just about to
What?
say that. I was just about to say that, like, some people might look at me because I've got muscular arms as an example and be
Yeah,
like, oh my God, she looks like a man, right? But then in the realm of bodybuilding, I am so unbelievably feminine. Like, bikini division is all about femininity. To be honest, like, I think it's something that IFBB really try and push quite hard in general. They want their ambassadors of each division to be as feminine as possible.
yeah,
And I think that's just, again, it's subjective. I think that's one of the reasons why women's bodybuilding as a division actually got axed from the Olympia, because
yeah.
like this is too contradictory, where like it's not feminine enough or something. I'm
Yeah.
sure I heard
Why,
that from
why are they not pushing out men's physique then, saying that is too feminine? Something in there.
It does my head about honestly, when people take the mick out of men's physique, it really, really rattles me, because I'm like, you have no idea how hard it is to actually look
Yeah,
like they do. Oh
yeah.
my God.
It's just banter though, isn't it? Because like I used to do men's physique in it, and obviously my coach is a men's physique guy. So when I'm just take the piss, I'm like taking the piss.
I think so
But
as well, like even from that standpoint, for any of the guys that are listening, like to someone that's not in the realm of bodybuilding, like in the sport, in the depths, understanding the divisions, like Ryan Terry's a great example. If someone who isn't a competitor or knows bodybuilding walked past Ryan Terry in the street, they'd be like, oh, he's a bodybuilder, but he's a
yeah,
men's physique athlete. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's like people don't quite understand that, I don't think, between the female divisions as well.
Mm.
Um,
So if
it's
someone asked you, someone said like, "What do you do?" Would you say, "Oh, I'm a bodybuilder," or would you say, "Oh, I'm a bikini athlete"? Because I always had I always struggled with that when I did men's physique, because I'd be like, "Do I say a bodybuilder, or can I? Am I not allowed to say that
really
yet?" Like,
so interesting. Yeah, like I'd probably say like I'm an IFBB bikini pro.
yeah,
I don't know. Do you know what? It's really funny. Like I've only actually ever like addressed myself as that once when I was at the Gymshark event. Like I spoke on
yeah,
camera for the first time. I was like, I'm an IFBB bikini pro, and then I was like, oh,
yeah,
you know, and some people like open up their videos with that or whatever. I was like,
yeah,
oh my God,
yeah,
it's the first time I've ever said it. But like even for me now to say like I'm a professional bodybuilder, it's crazy. Like it's
yeah.
actually crazy. Like to say
Can't
that it's
really
like
able
my
to say that.
profession.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but also people think like, oh, it's your profession, but like it's an investment to be a new pro as well, unless you are like at the top of the sport.
yeah. You're not making
Yeah,
the keys from it, even though it's professional. Because the thing is, like, you say a professional footballer, but you're not making no money. Yeah, but I'm still a professional footballer. Yeah, but I don't make on it. You're not a
yeah,
professional footballer, then, are you? Like, but in
yeah. It's
bodybuilding, you're still classed as professional, even though there's no wages that they give out. Because I think I've seen questions like that in the past, like, "Oh, what actually happens when you turn pro? Do you get like a little wage?" No, you just carry on doing the same shit that you've done, and hopefully, maybe you can place in the top three and get a couple of grand or something.
yeah, man. It's I think obviously like the ability to earn a living from the sport, it comes from like being a pro is a platform.
Mm,
Like obviously we have a passion for it and it's a total blessing to be able to stand next to like the best physiques in the world, but like in order to do that as an actual job, it's not that's the job. The
yeah.
job comes from like the endorsements, the sponsorships,
Mm.
business that you run on the side, being able to help others, coaching, whatever, all those other things. So yeah, like I definitely think that that's a really important point just to kind of maybe finish with as well. Anybody that has an aspiration to turn pro, you need to realize that like the rest of your life, you cannot leave it on the back burner. Like I look back now at the last 8 years of my life where I've been in pursuit of one day having a pro worthy physique. And I'm like, what else did you do? Or what else didn't you do? Because that time is going to pass. When you're hell-bent on trying to achieve a goal like this, just it's you need to let your bodybuilding run on autopilot in the background. When you're in prep, the year flies by and you just prep. But when it's off season, this is another reason why I'm not competing immediately. Take your time to like pour into other areas of your life, you know, finances, career, business, if you have one, you know, relationships, like whatever that may be, because your prep will be over and then you might be left with nothing if you've let everything else just fall on the wayside.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing for people to understand because it means so much that you want to give it everything, but sometimes
and you can.
But you need to be mindful of everything else around you. Because
100%.
it's your life, innit? All
Because
right, so let's wrap it up there. Stop talking, yeah.
I just end on one more sentence. Basically, when you end your prep, you'll be left to pick up the pieces then.
100%. And it might not be that easy to pick up the pieces because the pieces might just have fluttered off into the wind and then you've fucked it. So yeah, that's the end. So thank you, Marnie, for coming and having a chat. I don't know how long it is, but we'll see at the end of this. And then
Sorry, everyone.
But no, it's been good talking to you. And obviously, like I said, I have a lot of love for you just because we've seen everything through the times and fucking just from day one. And then we were in Dubai and we did that over COVID when there were a bunch of bodybuilders out there, and then come back, and then I've seen you starting your business, smashing it there, turning pro. Like I'm so fucking proud of you, man. I'm so proud. And I almost cried. You'll probably be able to, if you watch this back, if you zoom into my eyes.
I did see the tears. I did.
You'll probably be able to see like little tears come out. I was like, do not cry, do not cry, do not cry. But anyway, yeah. All right. We'll end it there.
Thanks for having me.
Huh?
Thanks for having me.
All right. It's all good. Maybe we'll speak again soon because that was a long one. We probably got more we could speak about. But all right. Peace.